Yeah, Penny loved that.
Have you seen it?
Yeah, great guy. I'll tell you where I am. I'm in Rose Park. I'm the guy.
Presentation here on some of the names that are found in the Bible. We have some new faces. I always try to preface class by saying that this is my understanding, and you're perfectly welcome to disagree. I don't mind at all. I don't mind questions. I don't mind people challenging things. I strongly encourage you to investigate truth for yourself. So this is really just my understanding of some of these things. The word religion actually comes from the original Greek. It's a prefix and a suffix. The prefix means re. The prefix is re, which means to do again. And ligio is a connection, like a connection between a joint of an arm or in your body, like a ligament. So religio actually means to reconnect. And presumably this means to reconnect with yourself with God, or God with you, or yourself to your higher self, or however you want to define that. But the reconnection means to literally reconnect. The Bible begins with the words, "in the beginning." And it says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." And the word that is used for God in this passage is Elohim. This is just a comment on some of the names in the Bible. Yes. So the Bible begins, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth," and the name that is used in this passage is Elohim. The Old Testament uses two primary words for God. The first is Elohim, and this name is used in Genesis 1:1. The name Elohim occurs 2,570 times in the Old Testament, and almost all of the Bible translations translate this word as God, which is capitalized. And technically, Elohim is in the plural form. Him means it's plural. Technically, it's plural, yet when it is used to refer to God, the God of Israel, this plural form is always used with the singular pronouns he, him, or him, and not they. So Elohim is used 2,500 times.
So that's a Hebrew word, or?
Yes. This is the Old Testament, so this is Hebrew. The other central Hebrew word used for God in the Old Testament is Yahweh, or Jehovah, YHVH or JHVH. This word occurs over 6,800 times and functions as the personal name for God. You can see right here, this is the name Jehovah. So in the Old Testament, God says things like, "I am Yahweh who brought you up out of Egypt." And the name Yahweh probably is related to the Hebrew verb meaning I am. So Yahweh basically means I am, or to be. Thus, God's self-identification to Moses as "I am who I am" is a wordplay on the name Yahweh. In most English Bibles, the name Yahweh is usually translated as the Lord, with the Lord all in capital letters. The numerous titles for God have been a source of debate among biblical scholars. Yahweh is the only proper name of God in the Tanakh. TNK, Tanakh is the Jewish name for the Old Testament. The letters TNK stand for, T is Torah, N is Nabi, which is prophets, and K is book, or Kitab. So the word Tanakh means the Torah, the Nabi, and the book. So the word Yahweh is the only proper name of God in the Tanakh in the sense of a personal name. And words such as Elohim, El, the Mighty One, El Shaddai, the Almighty, Adonai, Master, Elyon, the Most High, and the others are not names but titles, highlighting different aspects of Yahweh and the various roles of God. The terms Elohim and Yahweh are often used together in the same context. Thus, in the great Shema Shema is the Hebrew word for hear. Shema of Deuteronomy, Moses declares to Israel, "Hear, O Israel, Yahweh our Elohim, Yahweh is one. Love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength." If you look at the original text, I guess you can see that. Here's Jehovah. Elohim is 430. This is this one, Elohim. This is Jehovah again. So this is the original Hebrew. And if you get an interlinear Bible, such as this one, it gives you the original Hebrew, and then underneath each Hebrew word, it gives you the English translation. And then above each Hebrew word, it gives you a number that you can go to Strong's Concordance and you can research each individual word. Its origination, derivation, its usage, and where it's used. So using an interlinear, you can actually become a Bible scholar almost overnight. Jesus repeated the Shema, Hear, O Israel, in the Gospel of Mark. And Jesus identified the Shema to be the first of his two greatest commandments. The first of all, quote, "The first of all the commandments is, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, with all thy mind, with all thy strength." This is the first commandment. Does anybody know what the second commandment is? Speak up.
Love your neighbor.
Yes, love your neighbor as yourself. So love God, love your neighbor. So when Jesus was dying on the cross, he cried out to God. What name did he use? It says, around the 9th hour, Jesus shouted in a loud voice, saying, "Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani," which is, my God, why have you forsaken me?" And then again in Matthew, he says, shouted in a loud voice, "Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani," why have you forsaken me? My God, why have you forsaken me? The name Eloi that Jesus used when he's dying on the cross is a reference to Elohim. So apparently the name that Jesus used for God is Elohim. I'm going to be speaking about Isaiah in more depth in a few minutes, but the Old Testament prophet Isaiah speaks of the coming of a Redeemer in the last days. Isaiah wrote, "It shall come to pass in the last days that the mount of the Lord's house shall be established, and all nations shall flow into it." And we'll get to which mountain that is later on. Isaiah continues by asking this question about the people who have been led astray. How has the faithful city become a harlot? This is why they needed a Redeemer. Isaiah reassures us that the Redeemer will renew religion. The former things are come to pass. The former things will pass. New things do I declare. Sing unto the Lord a new song. Will magnify the law and make it honorable. I shall do a new thing, shall you not know it? So Isaiah promises that the Redeemer will appear with a new name. He says, "I will give them an everlasting name that shall not be cut off." Again, Isaiah promises, "Thou shalt be called by a new name, which the mouth of the Lord shall name." And again, he warned, "You shall leave your name for a curse unto my chosen, for the Lord God shall slay thee, and call his servants by another name." So the purpose of this presentation is to talk about some of the names. Isaiah offers some clues as to what this new name might be. It says, "The glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see. The excellency of Carmel and Sharon, they shall see the glory of the Lord, when the Jews return." And Jesus affirms Isaiah's promises by assuring us that the Redeemer will make all things new, and he will give us a whole new Jerusalem. And Jesus also promised a new name. Jesus, in the book of Revelation, John says that this is a revelation from Jesus, so in that sense it is Jesus speaking these words. He says that he that overcomes, I will write upon him the name of my God, the name of the city of my God, which is New Jerusalem, which cometh down from heaven from my God, and I will write upon him my own new name. So Jesus says that when Christ returns, he'll have a new name. And he says this two other places in the New Testament. Islam has a tradition that there are 99 names of God. And there's another tradition that says that there is a greatest name. The name that Jesus used when he cried out to God was Elohim. You can compare this to the Islamic name for God, which is Allah. Allah, Elohim. There's another Islamic prophecy that the name of the greatest name, the name of the promised one, is found in the book, and is also found in the first chapter of the book. It's first found in the first word of the book, and it's also found in the first letter of the book. So the Bible and the Quran both start with the letter B. The first word of Genesis is Rishiyeth, beginning. The first word of the Quran is Bismillah. All the 114 surahs of the Quran begin with the letter B, except for the 9th surah, which begins with the word Bara'at. And the translation of the word Bismillah is in the name of God, the compassionate and merciful. In Islamic literature, there are a large number of traditions about the greatest name of God. One is found in the Shia Islamic prayers, is that of Imam Muhammad al-Baqir. As you may remember, upon the death of Muhammad, there was a struggle over leadership of the religion. The family line, the line that was through the family line of Muhammad, these leaders were called the Imams. This is a statement from one of the Imams. And he wrote, the prayer reads, "O my God, I beseech thee by thy glory and thy supreme splendor, for all thy glory is truly luminous. I verily, O my God, beseech thee by the fullness of thy glory." So, according to Islamic tradition, somewhere in this passage is the greatest name of Islam. There's another Islamic prophecy that tells you what the name is, and I'll give you that for a while. So the names of God, in the first class, we spoke about the return of Krishna, or Kalki, or the 10th avatar. We spoke about the 5th Buddha, the matriarch, or the Amit Abha. The Zoroastrians spoke of the Shabbaram, the glory of God. Isaiah speaks of the glory of God. The Christians foretold coming with a new name. In Islam, the name for the promised ones are the Qayyim, the Qayyum, Mahdi, and the glory of God. So, any questions or comments on that? Feel free to speak up. They shall beat their swords into plowshares. Who said that? Anybody notice that?
That's John in Revelation.
Okay, John, well, maybe, I don't think so. Isaiah said that, and also Micah. What's interesting is the prophecies of Isaiah and Micah are so similar, so complementary. It's almost like they're in the same author. I was playing with the graphics in the program where the symbols of war and the symbols of death are replaced by the symbols of the book, the symbols of new birth. Both Isaiah and Micah lived in Israel sometime around 700 BC. Each wrote a book of prophecy. The book of Isaiah and the book of Micah are both so similar to each other in style and content that it almost seems that they're written by the same pen. There is speculation that the book of Isaiah may have been written by as many as 2 or 3 people. That's just speculation. And what's interesting is if you compare Isaiah with Micah, you find some striking similarities. So on the left is a statement from Micah 4, on the right is a statement from Isaiah 2. It says, in the last days, both say in the last days, The mountain of the house of the Lord shall be established in the top of the mountains. He teaches of his way, we will walk in his paths. He shall judge among the nations. He shall beat their swords into plowshares and spears into pruning hooks. So both Isaiah and Micah said that. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall there never war anymore. Fascinating similarity.
Now, were they contemporary, like at the same time, or maybe
Yes.
20 years later?
No, they lived about the same time. This would have been,
But they didn't know each other.
there's no evidence that they knew each other. There's also no evidence that they didn't know each other. So, here's an answer to your question. The question was, did they know each other? Or did they live at the same time?
Yeah.
So, Micah's name means, who is like Yahweh? He prophesied for about 47 years, from approximately 637 to 690 BC. He's the author of the book of Micah. Micah was a contemporary, which means he lived at the same time as Isaiah, Amos, and Hosea, and is considered one of the 12 minor prophets of the Old Testament. Micah's prophecy that the Messiah, the king of all of Israel, would be born in the town of Bethlehem is recalled in the book of Matthew. In the last chapter of his book, Micah also foretold the coming of another Messiah in Mount Carmel. Isaiah prophesied for about 64 years during the reigns of 4 kings. And if you look at Isaiah, the first chapter of Isaiah, he says that he reigned for 4 kings of Judah, Uzziah, Jotham, and the other guys. Uzziah reigned 52 years in the middle of the 8th century BC. And Isaiah must have begun his career a few years before Uzziah's death, probably about 740 BC. Isaiah lived until the 14th year of Hezekiah. He died in 698. He may have been a contemporary for some years with King Manasseh. Manasseh, I think, is the grandson of Hezekiah. And if you know the story of Manasseh, he turned the nation of Israel, the people of Israel, away from the God of Israel to paganism. And that was the beginning of a really bad period in the country of Israel. According to tradition also, it was King Manasseh who killed Isaiah. Supposedly Isaiah was placed into the trunk of a tree, and the tree was sawed in half. So Isaiah and Micah both seem to have foretold the appearance of Jesus and Baha'u'llah, the prophet appeared in the mid-1800s. Jesus' first public announcement that he was the anointed one, that he was the Christ, was made in his own hometown. Jesus was traveling around the region. The time came for him to announce to the people who he was. He went back to his hometown to make this announcement. And this is a quote from the New Testament. Jesus went back to Nazareth, where he had grown up. And on the Sabbath day, he went into the synagogue. There he stood and he read the scroll from the prophet Isaiah. Unrolling it, he found the place where it is written, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to proclaim the good news to the poor." This is a quote from Isaiah. So the word anointed is significant because the word anointed means, translates into the Greek as Christ. He's announcing to the people of his own hometown that he was the Christ, that he is the Messiah. The word Christ is Greek, the word Messiah is Hebrew. They're both the same word. And Isaiah also speaks of the good news. The word good news in the Greek is gospel. And then Jesus announced to them, "Today the scripture of the coming of the anointed one is fulfilled." And we're hearing that I am he. That's essentially what he says. This is the actual, yes?
I just had a question. It was 1 or 2 slides back where you said that Isaiah and Micah had prophesied the coming of the Messiah, Jesus Christ.
Yes.
But there was another name there
Yes.
too. I didn't get that.
I'll get to it.
Oh, okay.
She was wondering about the 2 names that Isaiah apparently foretold, and I'll get to that. So this is the actual quote from Isaiah 61:1, that Jesus read in the synagogue. Fairly long. He's sent to help the people of his country. The significant thing is the use of the word anointed, which means Christ. And the word brings good news, which is the gospel. Isaiah 61. In Micah 5:2, Micah speaks of Bethlehem. The passage actually reads, "As for you, Bethlehem, seemingly insignificant among the clans of Judah, from you a king will emerge, who will rule over Israel on my behalf, one whose origins are in the distant past." So Micah is foretelling the coming of a king. In Matthew 2, it claims that Jesus is the fulfillment of this prophecy. Quote from the New Testament from Matthew 2, it says, "Jesus was born in Bethlehem during the time of King Herod. Magi, who may have been Zoroastrians, from the east came to Jerusalem, apparently either to pay homage to him, or some people say that it was a rescue mission. They brought him gold, which allowed him to escape into Egypt and save his life. So when the king heard about this, of course, anytime any king had any kind of rival, he immediately tried to put an end to that. So again, they quote the passage about Bethlehem. Out of you will come one who will be a ruler of Israel. If you wanted to be a real stickler about the literalism of this, Jesus was never literally a king of Israel, but he certainly was a spiritual king. So to try to sketch in the historical context of what was going on at the time of Isaiah and Micah, they both lived during one of the most turbulent times in the history of Israel. This is when Israel was about to be conquered by a succession of foreign empires, and most of the inhabitants of the Jewish kingdom were about to be dispersed among the nations. The empires were coming in, and the Jews were being hauled off as slaves. This is the theme of the book of Daniel, the successive empires.
Is this when they went to Babylon?
Yes. Yes, they were first conquered by Assyria, then by Babylon, and then Persians, and then the Greeks. And the Romans, and then the Muslims. So it's a process of conquest that lasted 2,500 years. So the Jews returned to Israel. So in their two books, these two prophets, Isaiah and Micah, look beyond the tragic events that Israel was soon to face to a more hopeful time in the future.